Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Beth McRae of the McRae Agency. Beth, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And I want to read a little bit more about Beth so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Beth is the president of the McRae Agency, celebrating 25 years in 2020. Happy 25 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And she has represented clients for PR work in numerous industries and has notable clients such as Google, Sprint, CBRE, Red Bull, Tiffany and Company, KB Home, Sunny Delight, and Solatube International, to name a few. She has received over 45 awards for her work, including the Bank of America Enterprise Award. She has a journalism degree, a marketing degree, and an MBA, which is unusual for her field. Beth, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. I really am happy to be here and excited to talk about my profession and what bits of wisdom I can share.
Yeah, absolutely. You have so much experience and done so many great things. So before we, I guess, jump more into hearing about that, I wanted to hear how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? What led you to get started with your business?
Certainly. I was, your typical college student, didn't know what I wanted to do. My parents said, you'd be great in PR. And I was like, what is PR? I had no idea. And then I started taking the courses and the degree programs and realized I really loved it. And I actually am doing what I studied in college, which doesn't always happen for people. So I've been blessed to have this career for 25 years. I worked at a large agency called McCann. It's probably one of the biggest agencies in the world. And that's where I got my career started. And then shortly after that, I went out on my own. And that was 25 years ago. So
Nice.
I've been running my own show that whole time and getting to work with some pretty amazing clients over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, it's definitely a blessing to get the opportunity to study something and then be able to continue to kind of sharpen the saw and get the experience with the big company and starting your own company. So yeah, no shortage of experience, it sounds like.
That's right. And I did the internships and, the things that they always tell you to do to get the experience to land that first job. And then, kind of work my way up the ladder at McCann before I went out on my own. And one of the reasons I did go out on my own is because as much as I love McCann and the experience I got there, they would bring in all this, like the head of the agency and the vice presidents and all this to the first meeting with a client, and then the client would like literally never see them again. And I, the junior level person at the time, would be doing all the work. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's not what they're paying for. They deserve some senior level people on their account. So when I went out on my own, I said, I'm never going to do that to my clients. I'm going to be involved in every one of their accounts. And that is something that has differentiated me from others over the years, because that's just not the way the model usually works. It's usually here you get to meet the senior people and then off you go to the junior level people to actually do the work.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I feel like definitely, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it seems like that kind of, I don't know if I would call it attention or just the value that you provide, that manifests itself and probably comes out in the work that you do as well too, when you're really able to kind of have that touch on each of the clients you get
Yes.
to work with.
They love it. They like having the senior most person, visible and working on their account.
Yeah, absolutely. So could you take us through a little bit more for people that may not be familiar with PR? Could you take us through how exactly you serve the clients you work with?
Sure. So the main reason we get hired is because people, companies, et cetera, want exposure and they love news coverage. So news coverage is still the holy grail out there, and people still really want traditional print, broadcast, et cetera, like that, even though in our field we've expanded to include all the digital media as well. But the number one reason we get hired is for publicity, as we call it. So from there, we can do things like manage their social media, help them with trade shows. If they're, working trade shows as part of what they do for their brand, we do strategic planning sessions where we're leading them through a strategic process and helping them kind of figure out the roadmap for where they need to go with marketing and PR. We have put on events. PR is actually kind of a nice umbrella term for anything, PR stands for public relations, right? So it's the relations with your publics, the relationships you're developing with your constituents, whoever they may be. And that can include everything from your customers to your employees to investors, any kind of audience that you need to communicate with falls under that realm of public relations. So we structure those plans accordingly to address, and there's different messages for each of those. What you say to your customer is different than what you say to your employees or your investors or the community at large. So that is kind of what public relations is. So it's actually a really big, broad term, and so many things can fall under it now, and especially with all the digital and social media that we have, those are all channels by which we communicate with the different audiences. So it's an amazing, fascinating time to be in this field, because when I started in the profession, you had magazines, radio, TV, and they were limited, like it was more narrow. You had 3 main TV channels. You didn't have all the cable and everything. I'm dating myself tremendously. But then, of course, with the internet and social media and the advent of all of those things, it just opened it up so big and huge and wide, and allowed us to go direct to the audiences on behalf of clients without having to always go through the traditional media, which is nice. You can have a blog, you can have a podcast, you can have a webinar, you can communicate through the different social media platforms. There are so many ways now to communicate directly with whoever your audiences are and not having to solely rely on news coverage.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And that opportunity going to direct consumer has, completely blown up. But I love how you, broke that down, because I think when you start thinking about how am I relating, how am I connecting with the public, it starts to open up that perception, I guess I should say, as far as like how in the ways by which you can do that. As you mentioned, events, obviously the more traditional ways that you mentioned as well too, but even the blogs and the new age kind of things as well too provide that opportunity to create those relationships.
Yes, it's amazing. I just love all the possibilities and opportunities that are available to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you're, a sole proprietor or you're an executive at a company or running a company or an entrepreneur. I mean, anybody can take advantage of all of these things that we have available.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I wanted to ask you for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you personally or your business, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Well, as I mentioned, a lot of the larger agencies do, I call it bait and switch, because I don't really know what else to call it. It's like, here you get to see these senior level people and you're probably never going to see them again, and they're not going to be working on your business.
Right.
So what sets us apart is I'm involved. I'm the senior person. I'm the president of the agency. I've been running it all these years and worked on all these amazing, high level brands, and can take lessons from those and bits of their playbook and repurpose them, even for smaller companies. We can retool stuff like that. But I'm the one with all that institutional knowledge. So I think it's important that my clients be able to access that, and I can share it with them and provide the advice and the direction, and actually do some of the pitching to the news media even. So that sets us apart. The fact that I have an MBA definitely sets us apart. Most PR people don't, go beyond their degree in college. And the fact that I have a journalism degree, that's a bit unusual too. So I, was trained as a journalist, so I kind of understand how the news media work and what they want, what they don't want. I write like a journalist. I adhere to something called Associated Press style, which is the guidebook for journalists. If you look at the New York Times or whatever you like to read or watch, you will notice that they have a certain, style that they kind of adhere to, especially the print publications like that. So, those are some of the things that set me apart. I actually wrote a book, and it's called 121 Ways to Build Buzz. And it's literally just a lean, mean, boom, 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 boom. Like if you're just struggling and you can't come up with anything and you're brainstorming and you're like, what what can I do for my brand, or what can I do for my business right now, this book just lists 121 great ideas that I've used over the years for different clients. And you could just, pull something out of there, or maybe it sparks another idea. So I made it super user friendly. It's not got a bunch of just crazy narrative or, esoteric, theory or anything like that. It's just literally lean, mean, here's what you can do for your business. So that probably sets me apart a little bit.
Nice. No, I absolutely love that. And of course, I'm sure it's written in APA style.
Of course.
Like I remember, of course, and I remember that from my English major days of having to be able to write in that specific way. But I love, those different aspects, because I think that, again, a lot of times, especially with PR, from my understanding as well too, is a lot of times you have to kind of understand what many different people want, the person that's writing and creating the content, but also the people that are going to be reading it, and to be able to kind of have those different hats and be able to understand it from a kind of holistic way sounds like it helps out a lot.
Absolutely. And what you give to one member of the press, you can't take that same thing and just spam it, to everybody. It's really important to understand what that writer, let's say, writes about typically, what they like, what's going to be appropriate for their readers, and really customize those messages. So that's one of the things we take great care in doing, is really making sure the message is customized and it's not just the same thing just kind of blasted across the universe. And that's what we do on social media too, right? What you put on, say, Pinterest, or what you tweet about is not going to be the same thing you're going to do on TikTok or Instagram or whatever your particular platforms are. They're different audiences, they're different formats and messaging. So, it's just something for all of us to think about, especially if we're out there posting, right, which everybody's doing. So if you're doing it for business, you really have to put some thought into who your audience is and what kind of messages are going to resonate for them. And then you tailor it accordingly.
Absolutely. No, I love and I appreciate you for breaking that down, because I often say a lot of times the different social media sites are kind of like languages, and you don't want to speak French when you're on a Spanish language or English. And I love how you broke that down as far as like platforms and people's platforms, like different publication or blogs or podcasts, whatever that might be, really understanding what the language is, so to speak, there, so that you can pitch it in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it can get confusing when you start thinking about it, right? Because we have all these different channels and platforms and everything, and now we've got different messages, and it's a lot to think about. But that's one of the reasons PR people exist, is because we understand how to communicate and how to customize messages and things like that. And other people are like, no, I'm too busy making my widgets or whatever it is that they do, and they excel in, and they don't want to have to be experts in PR. And that's why, people like me get hired.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have the expertise, you have the knowledge to be able to get the name out there, and then the business out there as well too. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Okay, so this is perhaps going to be unusual, but meditation. It's something, it's a buzzword right now in a lot of places and in the business realm. And it's actually a fantastic tool, I think, and it really helps settle my mind and clear the space and allow me to do my job better. And there's a great app, it's free. It's called Insight Timer. So it's INSIGHT Timer. And it's available, for Apple, Android, etc. And it gives you the option of just thousands of meditations, and you could do it for 5 minutes. If you're just like, I can't meditate, I can't sit still that long. It offers 5-minute meditations, and then 30-minute, and then hour long, or whatever. So there's everything in between, and you can pick different topics. If you're dealing with stress, there are meditations that help you with, stress, and help you kind of get through that. And honestly, meditating, even if it's 5 minutes a day, can make such a huge difference for CEOs. It's a practice. I can't really explain why it works the way it does, but it's just a really wonderful, mindful practice to get into. And I've seen it make a positive change in my life and in my work. especially right now when we're all just
Yeah.
going stir crazy with cabin fever.
Mhm.
It's just great to have that quiet space just to sort of settle down, clear your mind, get ready for the day, get mindful. So I recommend meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first I probably meditated just about a year or so. I just started, and I love Insight Timer, as you said, just because I think it's, as we were just talking about the different platforms and how it can get really overwhelming. There's even, more things when you're, a CEO or a business owner that you have to juggle and kind of manage, whether it be team members or clients and so on and so forth, that being able to kind of just be present in the moment and to be able to just not necessarily disconnect, but be present to where you are and not be ahead or be behind thinking about the past or thinking about the future. It's
Yes.
a lot of times like a muscle. And once you're able to do it, no matter the chaotic times we might be in, it allows you to just be present and pay attention to those certain things
Mhm.
that are happening right at that moment.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so delighted that you're familiar with Insight Timer
Yes.
and you use it. It's great. I love that it's free.
Exactly, exactly, and it's definitely made me a lot less crazy, so to speak. And now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget, and this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It could be around PR, or if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Well, what I would tell myself, my younger self, is that there are going to be many business cycles of different types, and you need to stash a chunk of money away somewhere and not touch it, because there are going to be things like the tech implosion in Silicon Valley, or throughout the country actually. But I had an office in San Francisco when that happened, so it was
Oh wow.
really, really quite scary. And then the Great Recession, and then right now. So it's just so important to have money set aside to get through those tough times. And that's something that never really occurred to me when I was starting out. And that there were going to be, crazy things. Like when I started my agency, it was in California, in San Diego, and we got hit shortly thereafter with a recession in California.
Mm,
This was in the 90s, of course.
mm.
And so I immediately got hit with that and realized, whoa, and it affects clients, because one of the first things clients do in those tough times is they'll cut PR and marketing,
Yep.
which maybe they shouldn't do, right? You can argue it either way, that perhaps you need it more than ever when you're going through a downturn of some sort. But anyhow, just make sure you have money stashed away to get through those tough times. And you know, it's great advice for anybody in any business.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Um,
even not having a business as well too, just making sure you have, like, I think even in kind of personal finance, people will even say you need to have like 6 months stashed away
yeah,
because you never know what's going to happen or what might pop up. And if you're prepared for the worst, then you'll be able to kind of succeed in all different times of the business.
it's so true. You're so right.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Beth, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Well, for me, it starts with leading with kindness. And, you know, I always give my employees the benefit of the doubt, and I approach them, clients, everyone, as if, I don't really know what's going on in their lives, and they could be faced with something really, terrible or traumatic, or something could be going on that particular day, and they're out of sorts. And so I find leading with kindness gives the opportunity for us to work through whatever the thing is that's happening, and for them to feel, loved, appreciated, valued, and understood. And I just would wish for all of us that we can all try to lead with kindness, and that counts for just your daily interaction at the grocery store with the clerk, or anybody, that we've been talking about Karens in the news a lot. Those are not the people that lead with kindness, right? Unfortunately, they're leading with something else. But I feel like if we can all lead with kindness, it just makes for so better quality interactions with everybody at every level and every role.
Yeah,
So
It's so powerful, just being kind, and a quote that I often say is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think when you have that kindness, when you are thinking about another person, and you're doing that from as you mentioned, going to the grocery store or running your business and everything in between and all around, it starts to show, and to me, it manifests itself in the type of person that you are, and how you come off in the world.
Absolutely. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I truly appreciate that definition, and I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
sure. Yeah, I just hope everybody gets through this, not only survives, but thrives. And we all just have to stick together. And that's where the leading with kindness comes in, or just acting with kindness. If we can practice that and just stick together and, have each other's backs, we'll get through it. I know we will. And somewhere there's going to be this great light at the end of the tunnel, and things are going to somehow be okay. And we're going to be able to get back to thriving again.
Yeah.
And the way people can get a hold of me is they can call me at 602-330-1996, or they can email me at Beth, BETH, at McRaeAgency.com, which is McRaeAgency.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Beth. We will have the links and information in the show notes just so that everybody can follow up with you. But again, I appreciate that. And I think, during a time like this where there's so many things going on, and we forget that human aspect of business where we're all kind of dealing with so much. You never know what somebody's dealing with. I think if you're kind, and you can have that as part of our religion and our philosophy in every aspect that we're doing, then it just starts to make, the world a better place, and it helps us all be able to kind of get through these challenging times.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
I hope you do too. And I think you seem like a very kind person to me. So I really have enjoyed getting to know you today.
Yes, absolutely. I try to display that kindness as much as possible. So I appreciate you as well.
It comes through.
Thank you.